Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Stellar Dawn and stared at the data pad in his hands. He read the message 3 times, but it still made no sense. The human colonist named Ji-ho had requested permission for something called recreational wilderness immersion. The Galactic Survey Corps had approved it without understanding what it meant. "Captain," said Navigation Officer Kix, his insect-like eyes clicking as they focused on the data pad. "The human's equipment manifest lists over 60 items. This seems excessive for scientific research." Hyunwoo nodded slowly. Humans had only joined the Galactic Survey Corps 6 months ago. Most alien species still found them confusing. They were not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest, but they had something different, something that made other species nervous. "What does recreational wilderness immersion mean?" asked communications specialist Forth. Her crystalline body sparkled as she turned toward them. "My species catalogs all activities for efficiency. This term does not exist in our databases." Hyunwoo had studied humans more than most aliens. He knew they came from a dangerous planet where survival required strange skills, but even he struggled to understand their request. The door to the bridge opened and Ji-ho walked in. He was average height for a human with dark hair and calm eyes. He carried a large backpack that looked heavy. Behind him, a crew member pushed a cart loaded with more equipment. "Reporting for duty, Captain," Ji-ho said with a slight bow. It was a human gesture that Hyunwoo had learned showed respect. Ki made a chittering sound that meant confusion in his species. "Human Ji-ho, your equipment weight exceeds mission parameters by 300%. Explain this inefficiency." Ji-ho smiled. Humans did that when they were happy or trying to be friendly. "It's camping gear. I'll need it for the wilderness survey." "Camping," Vorth repeated, her voice making the word sound like broken glass. "This word translates as temporary shelter creation. Why not use standard emergency habitat modules?" "Because camping isn't about emergencies," Ji-ho explained. "It's about living with nature instead of fighting it." The alien officers exchanged looks. Hyunwoo could see they thought the human was either lying or crazy. Most galactic species had one of 2 relationships with wilderness. They either conquered it with technology or avoided it completely. The idea of choosing to live in dangerous places for fun made no sense to them. "Let me see the equipment," Hyunwoo said. Ji-ho opened his backpack and began pulling out items. There was a sleeping bag made of strange materials, a small portable stove that used chemical fuel instead of energy cells, rope and metal tools and containers for water. Each item looked primitive compared to standard galactic technology. "This cooking device appears to be combustion-based," Kix observed. "Our food synthesizers are far more efficient." "But they don't work without power," Ji-ho replied. "This stove uses fuel I can carry. If I run out, I can burn wood." "Wood burning releases toxins and creates inefficient heat transfer," Vorth stated. "Why choose inferior methods?" Ji-ho paused in his unpacking. He seemed to be thinking about how to explain something obvious to people who could not see it. "Because trees are everywhere," he said finally. "Your synthesizers need specific components. Wood just needs fire." Hyunwoo looked at the human's equipment with new eyes. Each item was simple but served multiple purposes. The rope could secure shelter or climb obstacles or catch animals. The metal tools could cut or dig or pry or defend. Nothing required advanced technology, but everything worked together. "The planet Kepler 442c has been scanned," Hyunwoo told Ji-ho. "Dense forests cover 60% of the surface. The ecosystem is complex. There are large predators and toxic plants and unstable weather patterns." "Sounds perfect," Ji-ho said, and his smile grew wider. This was exactly the kind of human response that confused aliens. They described danger and the human looked happy about it. "The survey mission requires you to catalog plant and animal species in Sector 7. Hyunwoo continued. "This region is 50 kilometers from our landing site. Standard procedure is to establish a temporary base with full technological support." "I'd rather go alone," Ji-ho said. "Just drop me off with my gear. I'll call when I'm done." The bridge fell silent. Kix's wings buzzed nervously. Forth's crystalline structure dimmed with what Hyunwoo recognized as distress. "Human Ji-ho," Kix said carefully. Survival protocols require backup systems and emergency extraction capability. Solo wilderness missions have a 47% mortality rate among species with your physical capabilities. Not for humans who know how to camp, Jiho replied. But you have no advanced shelter, no energy weapons, no emergency beacon systems, Vorth protested. How will you survive if conditions become hostile? Jiho held up a simple knife with a fixed blade. With this, and what I can learn from the environment. Hyunwoo made a decision that would change everything. Maybe it was because he had studied human military history and knew they had survived on their dangerous planet for thousands of years. Maybe it was because their simple tools reminded him of his grandfather's stories about old Korea. Or maybe it was because the human showed no fear of something that terrified trained alien soldiers. Request approved, Hyunwoo announced. 2-week solo survey mission. Sector 7 wilderness deployment. Kix made the chittering sound again, louder this time. Captain, this violates standard safety protocols. Humans have different standards, Hyunwoo replied. He looked at Jiho. But you will check in every 72 hours. If we lose contact, we're coming to find you. Understood, Captain, Jiho said. Thank you for trusting me. The next morning, they dropped Jiho at the edge of Sector 7. He stood at the forest boundary with his primitive equipment and simple tools. The trees were massive and dark. Strange sounds came from the depths. The air smelled of decay and growing things and hidden dangers. The shuttle lifted off and left him alone in a wilderness that had never known intelligent life. As they flew back to the ship, Hyunwoo watched the human disappear into the green darkness. How long before he calls for extraction? Kix asked. My species would request immediate pickup, Vorth admitted. Wilderness exposure causes system failures in our crystalline matrix. Hyunwoo did not answer. He was thinking about camping and wondering if the other species understood what they had just witnessed. They thought they were abandoning a human to survive against nature, but maybe Jiho was not planning to survive against nature. Maybe he was planning to survive with it. The forest swallowed the human completely, and the real test began. 3 days passed without any word from Jiho. Captain Hyunwoo sat in his command chair and watched the communication board. The green light that should show Jiho's location stayed dark. Still no signal from the human, Vorth reported. Her crystal body flickered with what Hyunwoo knew meant worry. Standard protocol requires rescue deployment after 48 hours of lost contact. Navigation Officer Kix clicked his mandibles together. The human has clearly overestimated his species' capabilities. We should retrieve his remains before local scavengers destroy the evidence. Hyunwoo did not answer immediately. He had read human military reports during the night shift. Their soldiers survived in conditions that would kill most alien species. But surviving and thriving were different things. Galactic command protocols are clear, Kix continued. We cannot risk crew members on unconfirmed rescue missions. The human made his choice. The human is crew, Hyunwoo said firmly. We do not abandon crew. But deep inside the forest of Sector 7, Jiho was far from abandoned. He was busy building something the aliens would never understand. On his first day, Jiho had found what campers called a perfect spot. A small clearing sat beside a fast-moving stream. The water was clean and the current strong enough to wash away waste. Tall trees surrounded the area but left gaps for sunlight. Most importantly, the location offered good views of anyone approaching. While the aliens worried about his survival, Jiho had been working. He used his simple tools to clear brush and level ground. He built a fire ring with stones from the stream. He strung rope between trees to hang his food away from ground animals. Every action served multiple purposes. The shelter he constructed looked primitive but incorporated lessons learned from years of military training. The main structure used fallen branches and his waterproof tarp. But Jiho also dug drainage channels around the base and created hidden storage spaces underneath. An alien observer might see a crude hut. A trained human eye would recognize a small fortress. By the second day, Jiho had established daily routines that maximized both safety and efficiency. He woke before dawn to observe animal behavior during the most active hunting hours. He collected water and firewood during midday when most predators rested. He prepared food and updated his scientific notes during evening hours when his fire provided both light and security. The portable stove that had confused the aliens proved invaluable. Jiho could cook hot meals without the smoke and flame of a large fire. When he did build fires, they served specific purposes: water purification, tool maintenance, and area denial. Predators avoided open flames, giving him safe zones around his camp. But Jiho was not alone in the forest. The Keth had been watching him since his arrival. They were the apex predators of Kepler 442c, intelligent pack hunters who used tools and coordinated tactics. For thousands of years, nothing had challenged their dominance. They were curious about this strange new creature who built structures instead of hiding in trees. The Keth leader was an old male named Grak. His scarred hide showed victories in countless hunts. His pack respected his cunning and feared his rage. Grak had studied the human's behavior and found it baffling. Most prey animals either fled when detected or fought when cornered. This creature did neither. Instead, it had claimed territory and marked boundaries like a rival predator. The Keth had never encountered such behavior from an obvious non-native species. "The soft skin builds like we build," observed Vec Grax, Lieutenant. "But its construction served different purposes." Grak growled low in his throat. The humans' camp violated every rule of proper forest behavior. Prey animals did not establish permanent territories. They did not create fire at will. They did not act as if they belonged in places where they had never lived. "It shows no fear," added Kira, the pack's youngest hunter. "Even when we mark our presence nearby." This was true and troubling. The Keth had left clear signs of their territory around the humans' camp: claw marks on trees, scent markers on rocks, half-eaten prey left where the human would find them. Any intelligent creature should recognize these warnings and flee. Instead, the human had done something unprecedented. It had left its own markers in response. Jiho's military training included psychological warfare tactics. He recognized the Keth signs as territorial challenges from intelligent predators. His response combined human pragmatism with soldier instincts. He carved his own marks on trees using patterns that looked deliberate and meaningful. He arranged stones in geometric shapes that suggested advanced planning. Most importantly, he left evidence of his technological capabilities where the Keth would find them. Empty food containers showed he possessed resources they could not understand. Cut rope demonstrated tools sharper than anything they had seen. Chemical fire starters proved he could create flame without fuel they recognized. The message was clear. This territory now belonged to something they had never encountered before. On the fourth day, Grak decided to test the strange creature directly. The attack came at dawn when most animals were least alert. 6 Keth warriors approached the camp from different directions using cover and concealment techniques perfected over millennia. They expected to find their target sleeping or unprepared. Instead, they found an empty camp. Jiho had heard them, coming hours earlier. His military training included advanced fieldcraft skills that made him nearly invisible in natural terrain. While the Keth crept toward his decoy camp, he circled behind them and observed their tactics. What he saw impressed and worried him. These were not simple predators driven by hunger. They moved with intelligence and coordination. Their tools were primitive but effective. Most dangerous of all, they showed clear evidence of planning and patience. When the Keth discovered the empty camp, Grak snarled with frustrated rage. The human had known they were coming and had escaped, but escape suggested fear, and feared. Prey could be hunted. He was wrong on both counts. Jiho had not escaped. He had repositioned for tactical advantage. When the Keth gathered in his camp to search for clues, he made his presence known in a way that redefined their relationship. The first indication that something had changed came when Kira stepped into a concealed pit trap. The hole was only knee-deep, but it demonstrated capabilities that shocked the pack. The human had predicted their approach route and prepared countermeasures. Before Grak could react, Jiho emerged from concealment 50 meters away. He stood, in clear view, showing no fear of the pack that could easily kill him in direct confrontation. Instead, he held up his simple knife and spoke in a calm voice. "I know you understand tone if not words," Jiho said. This is my territory now. You can share it or test my defenses. Choose wisely. The Keth understood challenge when they heard it, but they had never heard challenge from something so small and apparently defenseless. Grak's confusion turned to rage, and rage demanded blood. The pack charged across the clearing toward the lone human. They expected him to run or hide or beg for mercy. Instead, Jiho smiled and melted back into the forest like smoke. The real test of human camping skills was about to begin. Back on the Stellar Dawn, pressure was mounting. Galactic Command had sent 3 messages demanding updates on the human status. Captain Hyunwoo faced a difficult choice: admit they had lost contact with a crew member, or reveal that he had approved a dangerous solo mission. The human has been missing for 5 days, Kix reported during the morning briefing. Statistical analysis shows a 93% probability of mortality. We should file a casualty report and continue the mission, communications specialist. Vorth disagreed. My species values efficiency, but we do not abandon individuals without confirmation. The human may be alive and in need of assistance. Hyunwoo stood at the viewport and looked toward the forest where Jiho had vanished. His study of human military history suggested something the others had not considered. Humans were most dangerous when they appeared most vulnerable. One more day, he decided. If we receive no contact by tomorrow, we mount a search and rescue operation. The decision proved wise, but for reasons none of them expected. Deep in Sector 7, Jiho was fighting the most challenging battle of his life, but he was not fighting for survival. He was fighting for territory, and that made all the difference. The Keth had never encountered an opponent like him. Their hunting strategies, developed over thousands of years, assumed prey that followed, predictable patterns: run when threatened, hide when cornered, fight only when all escape routes were blocked. Jiho did none of these things. Instead, he had turned the forest into something military tacticians called a force multiplier. Every tree, stream, and clearing became part of his defensive network. Grak led his pack through the woods, following signs that made no sense. The human left clear tracks, but they led in circles. Food scraps marked locations that seemed random. Most confusing of all, the trail split and rejoined multiple times, as if the human could be in several places at once. He mocks us, growled Vec, Grak's lieutenant. No creature moves like this naturally. What they could not understand was that Jiho had established what campers called a base camp network. Multiple sites connected by hidden trails allowed him to move quickly between positions while appearing to teleport. Each camp served different purposes, but all were part of a larger strategy. Site 1 was his main camp, heavily fortified and well-supplied. Site 2 was a decoy camp, obvious and tempting but rigged with traps and warning systems. Site 3 was his observation post, hidden but offering clear views of the surrounding area. Sites 4 through 7 were supply caches and emergency shelters scattered throughout his territory. The Keth were hunting one human in one location. In reality, they faced one human in 8 locations who could appear anywhere at any time. The first major confrontation came on the 6th day. Grak had finally located what appeared to be the human's main camp. It sat in an obvious defensive position beside the stream with clear sight lines and multiple escape routes. The construction looked more sophisticated than the crude shelter they had discovered earlier. The pack approached carefully, expecting traps and ambushes. They found both, but not in ways they anticipated. Jiho had learned from their first encounter. The Keth were intelligent and coordinated, but they relied on direct assault tactics. Their strength was overwhelming force applied at the point of contact. Their weakness was adaptability to unexpected situations. When the pack reached the camp's perimeter, they triggered the first of Jiho's surprises. Tripwires released nets made from paracord that tangled their legs and weapons. The nets would not hold them long, but long enough to disrupt their coordinated approach. As the Keth struggled with the entanglement, Jiho struck from an unexpected direction. Instead of defending his camp, he attacked their rear guard. His target was not to kill but to confuse and demoralize. Kira, the pack's youngest member, found herself separated from the others with a sharp blade at her throat. The human spoke in the same calm voice he had used before. "Tell Grak this territory has new rules," Jiho said. "Adapt or leave." He released her unharmed and disappeared back into the forest before the pack could regroup. The message was clear and unprecedented. The human had the capability to kill but chose not to. Among the Keth, such behavior indicated either supreme confidence or supreme contempt. Grak chose to interpret it as contempt, and his rage grew. The war that followed lasted 3 days and changed both species' understanding of territorial combat. The Keth attacked with increasing fury, but every assault met unexpected resistance. When they tried to burn the human out, they discovered he had created fire breaks around all his positions. When they tried to cut off his water supply, they found he had multiple sources in underground storage. When they tried to exhaust him through constant pressure, they learned he had established rest positions they could not find. Most frustrating of all, the human's defensive positions actually improved with each attack. He used materials from their broken weapons to strengthen his barriers. He turned their own tactics against them by creating false trails that led into carefully prepared ambush sites. Jiho was not just defending territory. He was transforming it into something that served his purposes better with each passing day. The forest was becoming his ally in ways the Keth had never imagined possible. On the 9th day, something unprecedented happened. Rix, a mid-ranking gay pack member, approached one of Jiho's camps alone and unarmed. Among the Keth, this gesture indicated a desire to communicate rather than fight. Jiho emerged from concealment, but kept his knife ready. Rix was younger than Grak but older than Kira. His scars showed experience in many battles, but his posture showed curiosity rather than aggression. "You build strange territories," Rix said in broken but understandable galactic standard. Jiho had not expected the Keth to speak any language he understood. The revelation that they were not primitive animals changed everything about the conflict. "You hunt in strange ways," Jiho replied. "Most predators avoid fortified positions." "Most prey do not build fortified positions," Rix observed. "You are not most prey." The conversation that followed redefined both species' understanding of the other. Rix explained that the Keth had never encountered creatures who improved territory through habitation. Their concept of territorial control involved domination through force, not collaboration with environment. Jiho described human camping philosophy, the idea that intelligent beings could enhance natural systems rather than destroying or submitting to them. The forest could be made safer, more productive, and more beautiful through careful human intervention. To Rix, this concept was revolutionary. To Jiho, it was simply camping. Their conversation was interrupted when Grak arrived with the rest of the pack. The Alpha's rage at finding his subordinate negotiating with the enemy triggered the most dangerous confrontation yet. But this time, Jiho had an unexpected ally. Rix stood between Grak and the human, creating the first division in pack unity that anyone could remember. The civil war among the Keth was about to begin, and it would determine whether humans represented evolution or extinction for the forest's apex predators. Jiho checked his watch and realized 10 days had passed since his deployment. He needed to contact the ship soon or face a rescue mission that would complicate everything. But first, he had to survive the battle between two different visions of what it meant to be apex predators in a forest that was rapidly becoming something entirely new. The communication from Jiho came at exactly 72 hours as promised. Communications specialist Vorth received the transmission during her night shift and immediately called Captain Hyun-woo to the bridge. "Signal strength is strong and clear," Vorth reported. "The human appears to be in excellent condition." Hyun-woo took the communication headset with relief and concern in equal measure. "Jiho, report your status." "All systems green, Captain," came the calm reply. "Scientific cataloging is proceeding ahead of schedule. I've identified 47 new plant species and 31 animal species. Some very interesting behavioral patterns among the local wildlife." Navigation Officer Kix clicked his mandibles in disbelief. Define interesting behavioral patterns. There was a pause before Jiho answered. The apex predators here are more intelligent than initial scans indicated. They use tools, coordinate complex hunting strategies, and show clear evidence of social hierarchy. I've been conducting extended behavioral observations. What Jiho did not mention was that his observations had included direct combat, territorial negotiations, and inadvertent diplomacy. Some things were easier to explain in person. Request permission to extend survey mission by 1 week, Jiho continued. I'm making excellent progress on the xenobiology catalog, and the local environment is providing unique research opportunities. Hyun-woo looked at his alien officers. Kix showed obvious skepticism, while Vorth displayed what passed for curiosity among her crystalline species. Granted, Hyun-woo decided, but maintain regular communication schedules, and Jiho, be careful down there. Always am, Captain. Jiho out. As the communication ended, Vorth turned to Hyun-woo with a question that had been troubling her since the humans' deployment. Captain, how does one creature survive alone in hostile territory for extended periods? My species requires constant resource sharing and mutual support for optimal efficiency. Hyun-woo had been wondering the same thing. Human military history provided some answers, but Jiho's situation seemed to exceed even human norms for individual capability. In the forest, Jiho was discovering that survival and success were very different things. The civil war among the Keth had created opportunities he had never expected when this mission began. Rix's decision to break with Grak had split the pack into two factions. The traditionalists followed Grak and maintained that the human was an existential threat that must be eliminated. The progressives followed Rix and believed the human represented new possibilities for territorial development. The conflict had been building for 3 days since Rix's first conversation with Jiho. It came to a head when Grak issued an ultimatum. Kill the human immediately, or face exile from pack territory. Rix's response was unprecedented in Keth history. Instead of submitting to Alpha authority or challenging for pack leadership, he requested sanctuary in human territory. Jiho found himself in the strange position of granting asylum to an alien warrior who wanted to learn human camping techniques. Your construction methods are superior to ours, Rix explained as he examined Jiho's main camp. We build to dominate territory, you build to improve territory. The distinction was more important than Jiho had realized. Keth construction involved clearing areas completely and establishing defensive positions that excluded all other life forms. Human camping philosophy emphasized integration with existing natural systems. Look at your water management, Rix continued, pointing to the channels Jiho had dug around his shelter. You direct stream flow to serve your needs but do not interrupt natural patterns. Our methods would dam the stream completely and create stagnant pools that breed disease. Jiho began to understand why some Keth were fascinated by human techniques. His camping methods produced better long-term results with less environmental damage. For a species that had survived by adapting to forest conditions, this represented a major evolutionary advantage. The revelation that Keth possessed language capabilities changed Jiho's approach to the entire situation. What had begun as a territorial dispute could become something much more significant. First contact between humans and an intelligent alien species. But first, they had to survive Grak's escalating attacks. The traditionalist faction had grown more desperate as Rix's followers adopted human techniques. Keth, who learned to dig drainage channels, establish supply caches, and create integrated defensive positions, became more effective hunters and warriors. The old ways of pure dominance were being challenged by demonstrably superior methods. Grak's response was predictable and dangerous. If he could not defeat the human through normal hunting tactics, he would destroy everything the human had built and prove that traditional Keth supremacy remained absolute. The final assault came on the 13th day of Jiho's mission. Grak had gathered every traditionalist Keth in the region, nearly 20 warriors armed with their finest weapons and driven by territorial fury. Their plan was simple: burn everything the human had created and kill anyone who defended it. They attacked at dawn with overwhelming force, expecting to crush all resistance through sheer numbers and aggression. Instead, they discovered that Jiho's network of camps had evolved into something unprecedented, a forest fortress manned by a coalition of humans and progressive Keth. Rix had not come to human territory alone. 6 other Keth had joined him, along with their mates and offspring. They had spent 3 days learning human construction and defensive techniques. The results amazed everyone involved. Combined Keth strength and human engineering created defensive positions that maximized both species' capabilities. Keth warriors provided close combat skills while human tactics offered strategic coordination. Most importantly, the integrated approach allowed them to defend multiple positions simultaneously. When Grak's forces reached the main camp, they found it empty but heavily trapped. When they divided to search other locations, they faced coordinated resistance from concealed positions. When they tried to retreat, they discovered that escape routes had been blocked by fallen trees and improvised barriers. The battle that followed lasted 6 hours and demonstrated something that had never been seen before. 2 intelligent species, working together to defend shared territory. Jiho coordinated the defense from his observation post, while Rix led Keth warriors in tactical maneuvers. Human tools combined with Keth knowledge of local terrain created advantages neither species could achieve alone. Most importantly, they fought to capture rather than kill. Every traditionalist Keth taken alive was exposed to human-Keth cooperation in action. Some maintained their loyalty to Grak, but others began to question whether the old ways were truly superior. By late afternoon, Grak found himself isolated with only 3 loyal followers. His overwhelming force had been defeated not by superior weapons or numbers, but by superior cooperation. The final confrontation took place at the stream where Jiho had first established his camp. Grak, wounded and exhausted, faced the human who had destroyed his authority through the simple act of treating the forest as a partner rather than an enemy. "You have brought chaos to order," Grak snarled in accented galactic standard. "The forest was pure before your corruption." Jiho looked around at what they had built together. Keth and human structures integrated seamlessly with natural systems. The stream ran cleaner than before because their construction had improved its flow. Plants grew more vigorously because their presence had enriched the soil. Animals gathered nearby because they provided protection from other predators. "The forest is better than it was," Jiho replied. "We did not take from it. We added to it." Grak charged one final time, determined to die fighting rather than accept defeat. But Rix intercepted him, and the 2 alphas faced each other in single combat that would determine the future of Keth society. The battle was brief but decisive. Rix had learned human tactical principles to supplement his natural fighting skills. Grak relied on traditional methods that, while powerful, were predictable. When Grak fell, the last resistance to human-Keth cooperation ended. Jiho knelt beside the wounded alpha and began applying first aid. Grak's eyes widened as the human worked to save his life despite everything that had happened. "Why?" Grak whispered. "Because you are not my enemy," Jiho replied. "You are just someone who did not understand what we were building here." As the sun set on the 13th day, Jiho realized he needed to contact the ship again. But this time, his report would include information that would change galactic understanding of human capabilities forever. He was no longer just a human camping in alien wilderness. He had become the first human ambassador to an intelligent alien species, and their alliance was about to transform everything. 2 weeks had passed since Jiho's deployment, and Captain Hyunwoo could no longer ignore the pressure from Galactic Command. 3 more messages had arrived demanding immediate extraction of the human colonist. The final message included a direct order: retrieve the human or face court-martial for endangering crew members. "Extraction team will deploy at dawn," Hyunwoo announced during the morning briefing. "Full survey gear and emergency medical equipment. We locate Jiho and bring him home." Navigation Officer Kix buzzed his wings nervously. "Captain, what if we discover the human has not survived? Casualty recovery in hostile terrain presents significant risks to additional crew members." "Then we recover his body," Hyunwoo replied, firmly. "No one gets left behind." Communications specialist Vorth had been monitoring human communication frequencies and detected something unusual. Captain, I am receiving multiple signal sources from Sector 7. The patterns suggest more than one transmitter, but our records show Jiho carried only standard personal equipment. Hyunwoo frowned. Either their equipment was malfunctioning or something unexpected had happened in the forest. He made a decision that would change galactic history. Full contact team deployment, maximum diplomatic protocols. If Jiho has made contact with indigenous intelligence, we approach as ambassadors, not rescuers. The shuttle reached Sector 7 at midday and immediately detected signs that challenged every assumption they had made about the mission. Smoke rose from multiple locations in organized patterns. Cleared areas showed evidence of construction activity. Most shocking of all, sensor readings indicated the presence of dozens of life forms moving in coordinated groups. Captain, the pilot reported, I am detecting what appears to be a settlement of some kind. Multiple structures, organized layout, clear signs of intelligent planning. Hyunwoo activated the external communication system. Jiho, this is Captain Hyunwoo. Please respond. The answer came immediately, but it was not what anyone expected. Captain, welcome to Forest Base Alpha. Jiho's voice replied with unmistakable pride. Permission to come aboard denied. You need to see this from the ground. The shuttle landed in a clearing that had definitely not existed 2 weeks earlier. As the crew disembarked, they found themselves surrounded by the most remarkable sight any of them had ever witnessed. Jiho's simple camping expedition had become a thriving settlement. Human engineering and alien architecture worked together in ways that seemed impossible. Structures that looked organic had been integrated with technological systems. Gardens provided food while serving as defensive barriers. Water management. Systems channeled streams through the settlement while maintaining natural flow patterns. Most incredible of all, humans and aliens worked together throughout the settlement in obvious cooperation and friendship. Jiho, Hyunwoo said when the human approached them. What exactly have you been doing for 2 weeks? Camping, Jiho replied with a grin. Just like I said, but it got a little more complicated than I expected. Rix approached the shuttle, crew and bowed in a gesture that combined Keth respect with human diplomacy. Welcome to our territory, Star Travelers. I am Rix, speaker for the Keth people. Vorth's crystalline structure flickered with patterns that indicated extreme surprise. The indigenous species possesses language capabilities and social organization. This was not detected in preliminary surveys. They are excellent at remaining hidden when they want to, Jiho explained. But once we started talking, we discovered we had a lot to learn from each other. The tour that followed redefined everyone's understanding of what was possible when different species combined their capabilities. Kix examined construction techniques that used Keth strength to implement human engineering principles. Vorth studied communication systems that allowed instant coordination across the entire settlement. Most impressive of all was the defense network. What had begun as Jiho's simple camping setup had evolved into something that military analysts would later call the most sophisticated fortress ever created using primitive technology. These defensive positions are integrated with natural terrain in ways our tactical computers could not design, Kix observed. How was this level of coordination achieved? Humans see forest as partner, Rix explained. Keth know forest as home. Together we make forest stronger. The settlement solved problems that had challenged galactic colonization for centuries. Resource management was sustainable and renewable. Defense was multi-layered, but did not damage the environment. Most importantly, the indigenous species had been integrated as allies rather than displaced as obstacles. But the true revelation came when Grak approached the shuttle crew. The former Keth Alpha wore bandages from his recent injuries, but his posture showed respect rather than hostility. When he spoke, his words carried implications that went far beyond one forest settlement. Human Jiho has taught us that strength comes from cooperation rather than domination, Grak said in careful galactic standard. The Keth people wish to join the Star Travelers as equals, not subjects. Hyunwoo realized he was witnessing first contact with an intelligent alien species that had not been discovered through exploration, but through friendship. The implications for galactic law and diplomatic protocol were staggering. Jiho, he said quietly. You do understand that you have just negotiated a treaty alliance without authorization from Galactic Command? I was conducting scientific research, Jiho replied innocently. The treaty alliance was Rix's idea. I just helped with the translation. The discussion that followed lasted hours and covered territory that no previous galactic mission had explored. How do you classify a species that was never officially discovered? What diplomatic status do they receive? Who has authority to negotiate? On behalf of beings who were supposed to be primitive wildlife? The answer came from an unexpected source. Rix had been listening to the debate with growing impatience, and finally interrupted with a statement that cut through all the bureaucratic complexity. Keth people choose our own path, he declared. We choose cooperation with humans. If star travelers want partnership with Keth, they negotiate with humans who understand forest ways. The diplomatic revolution implicit in that statement would reshape galactic politics for decades to come. Indigenous species were claiming the right to choose their own representatives in galactic affairs. But the immediate problem was practical rather than political. Jiho had exceeded his mission parameters by several orders of magnitude. Instead of cataloging wildlife, he had established the foundation for the first mixed-species colony in galactic history. Galactic Command is going to have very strong opinions about this situation, Yuanwu warned. Then Galactic Command should send representatives who understand camping, Jiho replied. This is not going away just because it was not planned. The sun was setting as the discussion continued, and the crew from the Stellar Dawn found themselves invited to spend the night in Forest Base Alpha. What they experienced that evening changed their understanding of what civilization could become. Around campfires that served as both practical heat sources and diplomatic meeting places, humans and Keth shared stories and knowledge. Alien crew members discovered that camping was not primitive survival, but advanced environmental integration. Forest dwellers learned that galactic technology could enhance rather than replace natural systems. Most importantly, they all realized they were witnessing the birth of something entirely new, a civilization that grew stronger by including different perspectives rather than imposing uniform standards. As Hyunwoo watched Jiho teaching young Keth about water purification while learning advanced hunting techniques in return, he understood that his simple camping mission had become the template for a new kind of galactic society. The question now was whether the rest of the galaxy was ready for what they had built in one small forest on one distant planet. Captain Hyunwoo's report to Galactic Command became the most important document in diplomatic history. For 3 days, he had worked with Jiho and Rix to create a comprehensive analysis of what they had discovered and built in Forest Base Alpha. Response from headquarters was immediate and predictable. Confusion, denial, and demands for immediate evacuation of all personnel from the unauthorized colony. Command refuses to recognize the Keth as an intelligent species, Hyunwoo told Jiho as they reviewed the official response. They classify your settlement as a temporary research station that must be dismantled immediately. Jiho looked around. At the thriving community that had grown from his simple camping trip, Keth and human children played together using games that combined rules from both cultures. Gardens produced food that fed everyone while improving soil quality. Construction projects incorporated the best ideas from multiple species to create structures that served purposes neither could achieve alone. Command is welcome to try dismantling this, Jiho replied calmly. But they should bring camping gear. Hotels do not exist in the forest. The real test of their new society came when the official Galactic Command delegation arrived 1 week later. Admiral Sato brought 3 ships, 200 personnel, and explicit orders to return all humans to authorized duty stations while establishing proper protocols for contact with primitive indigenous life forms. The Admiral expected to find a handful of humans who had gotten carried away with their scientific mission. Instead, she discovered something that challenged every assumption about colonization, diplomacy, and civilization itself. Forest Base Alpha had grown to house over 300 residents representing both species. The settlement covered 50 square kilometers of forest that had been enhanced rather than damaged by intelligent habitation. Most shocking of all, preliminary scans suggested similar settlements were being established throughout the planet, as other Keth tribes requested. Human camping instructors. Colonist Jiho, Admiral Sato announced during their first meeting. You are charged with conducting unauthorized diplomacy, establishing illegal settlements, and violating first contact protocols. Respectfully, Admiral, Jiho replied. I was conducting scientific research. Everything else was self-defense. Rick stepped forward before the Admiral could respond. His command of Galactic Standard had improved dramatically during his weeks of cooperation with humans. Admiral Sato, the Keth people welcome star travelers to our world. But we choose to work with humans who understand forest cooperation. If Galactic Command wants Keth alliance, they must learn human camping wisdom. The statement was diplomatically revolutionary. An indigenous species was setting conditions for galactic contact and specifying which human representatives they preferred. The legal and political implications would take years to resolve, but the practical implications were immediate and undeniable. Admiral Sato spent 3 days touring Forest Base Alpha and interviewing residents from both species. What she discovered forced her to completely revise her understanding of successful colonization. Traditional galactic settlements required massive resource investment, environmental modification, and constant supply lines from home worlds. Forest Base Alpha operated with minimal external support while actually improving the local environment. Production exceeded consumption, conflict had been eliminated through cooperation, and the settlement was expanding through voluntary participation rather than forced displacement. How is this level of efficiency possible? Admiral Sato asked Navigation Officer Kix, who had requested extended assignment to study the settlement's organization. Human camping philosophy treats environment as partner rather than obstacle, Kix explained. Combined with Keth knowledge of local conditions, they achieve resource optimization that our best planning computers cannot match. The Admiral's engineering team reached similar conclusions about defense, construction, and social organization. Every system in Forest Base Alpha incorporated multiple redundancies and served multiple purposes. Most importantly, the settlement had achieved something that galactic colonies had never managed: complete integration with indigenous life. The breakthrough moment came when Admiral Sato witnessed the evening community meeting. Humans and Keth gathered around central fires to discuss daily activities, resolve disputes, and plan future projects. The democratic process incorporated decision-making traditions from both species while maintaining the informal efficiency that camping communities required. This is not a temporary research station, Admiral Sato realized. This is a new form of civilization. Her final report to Galactic Command included a recommendation that would reshape colonial policy throughout the galaxy. Official recognition of Forest Base Alpha as a permanent settlement, and Jiho as the first human Keth diplomatic liaison. The response from Command came in the form of an unprecedented decision. Instead of ordering evacuation, they authorized establishment of the galaxy's first mixed-species colonial research institute. Scientists, diplomats, and military analysts from dozens of worlds requested assignment to study the revolutionary techniques being developed on Kepler 442c. Within 6 months, camping had become the most studied subject in galactic universities. What humans had considered a simple recreational activity was revealed to be an advanced form of environmental engineering. Species that had never considered wilderness habitation began sending students to learn human camping techniques. The transformation was not limited to academic interest. Practical applications of camping philosophy solved problems that had challenged galactic civilization for centuries. Overpopulated worlds learned to enhance rather than exhaust their natural resources. Military strategists developed defense systems that strengthened rather than damaged local environments. Most importantly, diplomatic protocols were revised to include the possibility that indigenous species might choose their own representatives in galactic affairs. Jiho found himself in the strange position of being both a camping instructor and a galactic diplomat. Delegations arrived regularly to learn the techniques that had transformed one human's wilderness vacation into a model for interspecies cooperation. "How did you know this would work?" asked Dr. Lin, a xenoanthropologist from the Galactic University, who had come to study human-Keth integration. Jiho looked around at the thriving community that had grown from his simple campsite. Children from both species played together using rules that incorporated games from multiple cultures. Adults worked on construction projects that used the best engineering ideas from several worlds. Gardens fed everyone while improving the soil that fed them. I did not know it would work, Jiho admitted. I just knew that camping makes everything better. You start with whatever environment you find, and you figure out how to make it home. Rix, now serving as the official Keth representative to the Galactic Council, added his perspective. Humans taught us that strength comes from cooperation with environment, rather than domination of it. Keth taught humans that cooperation requires understanding what environment needs from us. The evening campfire had become a symbol of their success. Representatives from dozens of species gathered around fires that provided warmth, light, cooking heat, and the focal point for community discussion. The simple technology that had confused alien observers now served as the foundation for the most successful mixed-species community in galactic history. As the fire burned down and the community prepared for sleep, Jiho reflected on how far they had traveled from his original camping expedition. What had begun as 2 weeks of wilderness research had become a new model for galactic civilization. But at its heart, it was still camping. They were still making themselves at home in places where they had never lived before, using whatever resources they could find, and figuring out how to make the environment better through their presence. The difference was that now the rest of the galaxy wanted to learn how to do it too. Admiral Sato's final log entry summarized the transformation. Recommendation approved for permanent establishment of Forest Base Alpha as Galactic Mixed Species Research Institute. Colonist Jiho promoted to Director of Environmental Integration Studies. The camping program will be expanded to additional worlds as soon as qualified instructors are available. The forest had become a fortress, but more than that, it had become a home, and everyone who visited understood that they were seeing the future of galactic civilization. Not conquest or submission, but cooperation that made everyone stronger. Jiho's camping trip had ended. Jiho's diplomatic career had just begun, but, most importantly, humanity had given the galaxy a new way to think about what it meant to make a place home. The campfire burned down to embers, but the light it had kindled would spread to 1,000 worlds.